So you guys might have seen this headline or heard of this story about the International Criminal Court and Israel and Palestine, right? So I'm going to break this down for you and explain what happened. So the International Criminal Court, it's headquartered at The Hague in the Netherlands. And the decision, the ruling that they published on February 5th was they didn't accuse, they didn't officially charge anyone with war crimes. They didn't actually convict anyone. It's not even at that stage yet. The only thing that they decided on February 5th is that they're going to expand the ICC's jurisdiction, territorial jurisdiction, to the Palestinian territories occupied by Israel illegally since 1967, right? So just to show you on the map, take a look. Here you go. So, right. So, okay, they've given Sinai back to Israel, to Egypt, but, Gaza, the West Bank, and East Jerusalem, that's what we're talking about here, predominantly, okay? So the Golan Heights, that's Syria. We'll get to that later. But this story with the ICC, we're talking about the West Bank, we're talking about Gaza, we're talking about East Jerusalem, okay? And, I mean, there's really no debate here that these are illegally occupied by Israel. This goes back to the 1967 war. There are countless UN Security Council resolutions saying that Israel needs to fuck off. Nonetheless, Netanyahu, he went on a tirade. He lost his shit. I'm going to play it to you because it's look at him. Listen to what he says, huh? Pay attention.
When the ICC investigates Israel for fake war crimes, this is pure anti-Semitism. The court established to prevent atrocities like the Nazi Holocaust against the Jewish people is now targeting the one state of the Jewish people. First, it outrageously claims that when Jews live in our homeland, this is a war crime. Second, it claims that when democratic Israel defends itself against terrorists who murder our children, rocket our cities, we're committing another war crime. Yet the ICC refuses to investigate brutal dictatorships like Iran and Syria, who commit horrific atrocities almost daily. As Prime Minister of Israel, I assure you, we will fight this perversion of justice with all our might. When the ICC
Did you see that at the end? With all our might. He's such a shitty actor. I mean, damn, I expected better from him. He's not this bad usually. You're losing your touch, man. Okay, first of all, let's dispel some of the bullshit he said. He says the ICC is investigating Israel for war crimes. The ICC does not prosecute countries. It prosecutes people, individuals. Like you. Yes, you, Mr. Netanyahu. Yes. And your predecessors. And your military leaders. And your cabinet. But not countries. Okay? It doesn't go after entire countries. Also, he says fake war crimes. Are you really? You're sure about that? Fake war crimes? I seem to recall them being quite real. Yeah. I mean, this is just one instance. Israel bulldozing Palestinian homes to build illegal settlements. This is one instance among, Jesus Christ, who knows how many. Countless. Here's another one. During the right to return marches in 2018, 2019, this is a sniper talking to Haaretz. He says he shot 42 knees in one day. Here's another instance. Israel bombed a school in Gaza in 2014. They killed 15 children and left 200 wounded. So the ICC, another thing that Netanyahu doesn't tell you is that ICC, by saying that they have jurisdiction in the occupied territories, West Bank, Gaza Strip, East Jerusalem, it means they can also investigate Hamas and the Palestinian Authority. But if Netanyahu tells you that, then he can't play the victim, right? So if you watch that video and you don't know anything about this, you might think, oh my God, yeah, they're so anti-Semitic, they're going after Israel. No. The prosecutor, Fatou Bensouda, the chief prosecutor of the ICC, she opened this investigation in 2019. And it's not just about Israel. It also includes Hamas and the PA. But he didn't tell you that, did he? Let me play you the video, okay? So Here's the Chief Prosecutor, Fatou Bensouda.
I am satisfied that there is a reasonable basis to proceed with an investigation into the situation in Palestine, pursuant to Article 53(1) of the statute. In brief, I am satisfied, 1, that war crimes have been or are being committed in the West Bank, including East Jerusalem and the Gaza Strip. 2, that potential cases arising from the situation would be admissible. And 3, that there are no substantial reasons to believe that an investigation would not serve the interest of justice.
Right? So those are the main criteria of the Rome Statute. The Rome Statute is the treaty that formed the ICC in 1998. And those are the three criteria, that the main criteria you have to meet before you can launch an investigation. So this is in 2019. And all she wanted to do, so she's convinced there's evidence of war crimes and it's going to stand up in court. And what she wanted to do is make sure that the ICC has jurisdiction in these Palestinian territories. And that's the decision that was delivered here, because Israel is not a member of the International Criminal Court, right? They signed it, and then they notified the UN Under-Secretary General that they no longer want to be a part of it. So the Israelis thought they're very smart, right? Like, oh yeah, we'll get out of the Rome Statute, we'll leave it. Then the ICC can't go after us because we're not a member, and the Palestinians don't have a state. Yeah, well, turns out you fucked up. So Palestine in 2012, they got non-member state observer status at the UN. And then in 2015, they acceded to the Rome Statute, right? And this decision came out on February 5th, is just to set a precedent that, yes, can go ahead with this. And the main things that she talks about that they want to investigate, the first one is the war in 2014. Okay, so this was between July and August. It was around 7 weeks in 2014, July 7th to August 26th. Israel invaded Gaza, right? Ground invasion, and they were bombing the shit out of it. 65% of everyone who was killed, civilians. 25% of the casualties were children. You with me? 65%. That's not a few accidents. That's deliberate. And you go read the UN report. They note in the report that Israel was targeting residential buildings on purpose. Most people who died were in their homes or near their homes. Okay, so 2,252 casualties, 65% of them civilians, 25% children. The Israelis, 67 soldiers were killed and 6 civilians. And one of the civilians was from Thailand, I think. That's 8% versus 65%. So you look at that and you tell me who's the terrorist. You tell me who's deliberately targeting civilians. And with a fucking Air Force, right? They fired tens of thousands of tank shells. They conducted 6,000 airstrikes. 6,000 airstrikes. Palestinians don't even have a fucking Air Force. I mean, it's to call it asymmetrical is a fucking understatement. So that's number one. That's the war in 2014. The second thing, the right to return protests. So if you've seen Abby Martin's film, Gaza Fights for Freedom, that's what it's about, right? 2018, 2019, you had Palestinians that were doing the right to return marches. They're just protesting the border. They're not armed. They're just civilians. They're protesting. We want to go home because, Palestinians are refugees. They're stateless on their own land since 48. So what happened is the Israelis ended up, man, they shot 90% of people who were injured. It was in the lower limbs. So they were targeting them. They were shooting them in their lower limbs on purpose. I showed you that headline before of the sniper boasting that he shot 42 knees in a single day. I mean, this is incredible. You had hundreds of people that had to have their fucking legs amputated. 22 of them were kids. And they're shooting them with live fucking ammunition, right? It's astonishing. Every single day you had someone either injured, crippled or killed. Fucking unbelievable. So that's the other thing. And the third thing is the illegal settlements, right? So as I showed you here on the map, Israel is still illegally occupying Gaza. Gaza's under siege. They're illegally occupying the West Bank. They're illegally occupying East Jerusalem. And, you know, they just regularly demolish Palestinian homes with bulldozers. And then, you know, they just leave Palestinians homeless, right? And they build illegal settlements so that Jewish settlers from all over the world can just go and live there, right? So I'm sure you've seen a plethora of videos before. This is a daily occurrence. This is just every day, right? This is normal in Palestine. I mean, it's really heartbreaking. It's truly sickening. And so just to elaborate on that, why this is illegal under international law, this is ethnic cleansing. This is a transfer of population, right? You're kicking out the Palestinians from their own fucking land so you can move your population in. That remind you of something? That's ethnic cleansing. That's a crime against, those are crimes against humanity, okay? And that's covered under the Rome Statute. And so that's why she's investigating this as well. So those three things, those are the main things that she wants to investigate. And she hasn't even charged anyone with a fucking crime. She hasn't even, no one's been convicted. And you can see they're losing their shit, right? Not just Netanyahu. You also had the German foreign minister. You had the Hungarian foreign minister saying, oh, you can't do this. You can't do this because Palestine is not a state. And so, you know, this is illegal under international law. You don't have jurisdiction in Palestine. Palestine is not a state. You motherfuckers. Germany abstained when they were voting on Palestinian statehood in 2012. Do you see this shit? They're like, they prevent Palestinians from having their own state. And then when Palestinians try to, you know, join international accords or obtain international justice, they're like, no, you can't do that. You're not a state. This is the mental gymnastics here. It's so infuriating. It really is. It's their fucking land, you asshole. God, I'm not doing this. I'm not dignifying this bullshit. And look at this. This is Danny Dunnan. So we've covered him before, right? He sat down he's the UN, he's the Israeli permanent representative to the United Nations. And so he sat down at the General Assembly last year, and he brings a Bible with him. And he's like, look, we have biblical rights to the West Bank, which we want to annex. Yeah, okay, but the Bible is not international law. You're illegally occupying it. Yes, that's him. And so look what he says here. He posts on Twitter, reacting to this announcement, to this ruling by the International Criminal Court. He says, Fatou Bensouda, he doesn't even spell her name right. It's Fatou, not Fatsu. It says, Fatou Bensouda, chief prosecutor of the International Criminal Court, should be indicted, not Israel. The fucking stones on this guy. I mean, seriously, the fucking stones. I mean, just put that into perspective. Could you imagine another country saying that? Like, just I don't know. Imagine, I don't know, Venezuela, Syria, right? Imagine them coming under fire from the ICC, and then they're like, hey, fuck you. You should be indicted. I mean, you would look at that and you would be like, what is that? But somehow Israel gets away with it, right? And of course, it goes without saying the United States also condemned the ruling, right? Which the United States is not a part of the ICC either. And they actually sanctioned Fatou Bensouda. I covered it, right? We did a video. Hold on, let me pull it up for you. Yeah, this was back in June last year. Trump sanctioned her. And the head of the jurisdiction also at the ICC, Ficaso Muchachoko, he sanctioned both of them. Why? Because they're investigating U.S. war crimes in Afghanistan. And so again, the way this works is that it doesn't matter if the U.S. Refused to ratify the treaty and notify the UN Undersecretary General that they want to leave the Rome Statute. Afghanistan, the victim, right? The victim is a party to the Rome Statute. So you just need one or the other, either the aggressor or the victim, to be a party of the Rome Statute for an investigation to go on. And so, you know, the Trump administration was like, okay, we're banning you from coming to the US. You're not allowed to come here. We're going to sanction you. Fucking hell. I mean, the nerve is unbelievable, truly. It's really something. And, you know, this is a thread that I had posted about 2014, about the war on Gaza, right? Like I told you, the correct figure is around 2,252, 2,251. And again, it's 65% civilians, 25% of them children. 1,000 kids were left permanently disabled. And in the UN report, if you read it, it says that 20% of the population in Gaza is going to need mental health treatment because of the psychological trauma from this. I mean, it's horrific. It's really horrific. You can't even read one page. You get lost because there's so many casualties. You know, you have one guy talking about the fucking living room like being swallowed into the ground and his entire family being killed. You know, he wakes up the next morning and they tell him his whole family's been killed. Horrific shit. And another guy, it's horrible. And this is what Gaza still looks like, right? Because they're not allowed to bring in construction materials. It looks like this. It still looks like this since 2014. Because the Israelis are like, oh no, you're terrorists. We can't let you have concrete or, you know, cement, or we can't let you build. No, that's not allowed. So you can live like this. I mean, I don't know any country in the world that gets away with this kind of fucking genocide and atrocities. I really don't know. And of course, they bombed 118 UN facilities, right? And that's nothing new, right? They've also killed UN personnel in Lebanon from the UNIFIL mission. I mean, this is, you know, regular occurrence with Israel, right? They kill civilians, they kill journalists, they target journalists on purpose, they target medics on purpose. They try to cripple entire generations of Palestinians, and they even kill people from the UN. They do not give a fuck. And so finally, you have one fucking instance where they might be held accountable. Might, because again, Fatou Bensouda, her term is up. It's 9 years. It's up in June, I think. So there will be a new chief prosecutor. Who knows what they do? But at least we have the precedent now. But the one time you finally have some glimmer that, you know, Palestinians get some justice, look at how they're outraged. They're so used to shitting on Palestinians. They're so used to getting away with fucking anything. The Israelis, they really are. That the fact you would come here and say, hey, hold on a second, what you did here, that's a crime against humanity. What you did there, that's a war crime. They're outraged. Like, how dare you? And again, I repeat to you, Hamas and the Palestinian Authority, they could also face prosecution. It says so in the 2019 preliminary report from Fatou Bensouda. And again, she says it on the February 5th announcement, on February 5th ruling. It's not just about Israel. And nonetheless, Hamas and the PA, they welcomed it. I can imagine why, because, you know, like, just think, like, just as an example, I mean, you might get 20 people from Hamas, maybe, like, that's the best case scenario, right? Usually it's you get one person or two people actually in the docket at The Hague. But, you know, you might have 10 people, 20 people, 30 people charged with war crimes. You go to the Israeli side, Jesus Christ, man, that list is going to be fucking long. And I know the Palestinians, right? I know that they would say fuck it, right? That's like they would be ready to accept whatever consequences, knowing that the Israelis will be punished for what they did, because it's far greater what they did. It's not even comparable. I just told you the figures. It's not even close. It's just ridiculous. It's absurd. 65% civilians killed on the Palestinian side. I mean, that's deliberate. That's fucking deliberate. We're talking about a country that receives $3.8 billion every year in military aid from the United States. They have state-of-the-art machinery. They know exactly what the fuck they are doing. Okay? They know exactly what they're doing. Look, you got Palestinian kids doing their homework with candlelight. I mean, what kind of a way to live is that? What is that? This is on their own land. And, you know, the nerve of the Israelis to come here and say, like, oh, Palestine is not a state, so you don't have jurisdiction. What the fuck? They're not a state because you're illegally occupying them, you fuck. I mean, the mental gymnastics here, the nerve that they just say this shit so shamelessly, right? Look, I'm gonna show it to you from the February 5th ruling. Look at this. Israel adds. So Israel contends that it is clear that the Palestinian entity does not now hold, nor has it ever held, sovereign title over the West Bank and the Gaza Strip, a territory that in fact has always been under the effective control of others. Dude, this is, I can't overstate how fucking absurd that is. You know, because when it suits the Israelis, they're like, oh no, we're not occupying these territories. Look, the Palestinians, they have full control over their own affairs. And they did this trick a few weeks ago, right? With the COVID vaccines. So you'll see a lot of headlines saying, oh, look, Israel, they've inoculated more people than any other country. Look how brilliant they are. Look how effective they are. Yeah, because they're not counting Palestinians there. Palestinians are not being vaccinated. And the response is, oh, the Palestinians, they're you know, independent. They have self-determination. They're responsible for their own affairs. Just look at the Oslo Accords. But then when the Palestinians they've already acceded to the Rome Statute. And when they try to get jurisdiction from the ICC, oh, now all of a sudden it's like, oh, come here. No, they're not a state. They're not, you know, no, they can't do that. No, we don't have, we're not equal. The fucking nerve, man, really. It's really insane. No country on earth gets away with this shit. It's truly something. So I hope that kind of summarizes everything for you about what's happening. And there you go.